Oh shit. Hello, and welcome back to yet another NFL mock draft video. Today we have either part four or part five. I'm not really sure which one this is, but yet another week of NFL football has wrapped up. College football is not over, but a lot of these players, their season is over. A lot of the players I'm going to be talking about here, well, a few of the players, most of these players are from winning teams that will be playing bowl games and playoff games and things of that manner. But there's a couple. Um, yeah, man. I got my copious notes right here. Let's get right into it. Thank you for watching. Share my screen right here for y'all. All right, so this is the draft order. I edited it around a little bit because I just went by the current standings, so I don't know what the tiebreakers would be for certain teams with the same record or anything like that. I just went with the current standings in order. Um, and yeah, let's get right into it. I'm going to be breaking down a little bit in depth here. No trades, by the way. I'm going to be breaking down every team's situation a little in depth here. So the Giants here, not much to break down. It is extremely obvious. It's damn near clear that they're tanking. I mean, they are the worst team in football. They have no pass game. Well, maybe they're not the worst team. They just suck. I mean, they're gonna go like what 3-14 or something like that. So quarterback is the obvious play here. The question is it Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward? I don't know why Jalen Milroe was number one on the PFF board, but Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward. I think both of these guys have similar flaws. And what I mean by that is they both try to be Superman every play. They both try to extend every play past its lifetime, and it results in intentional groundings, terrible sacks, turnovers, fumbles. It's they need to get that will kill you at the NFL level. They both deal with this problem. Neither of them are exceptionally athletic, but they both are more than capable of picking up a third and long with their legs, of using their legs. I don't want to see either of these guys in, read option or, well, I guess read option's fine, but no, like intent, no like QB power, no QB draw, nothing like that. I don't want to see many, drawn up run plays for these guys because they both have good to great arm talent. I would say they both have great arm talent, actually. Um, Shadur, I think, is more accurate within 30 yards, I'd say. Neither of them, well, I think Cam Ward actually has a better deep ball. Shadur's deep ball, I'm actually a little concerned with, but I'm not sure. Listen, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Neither Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders, I think, are blue chip, once in a generation, number one overall pick caliber players. I said both of these guys are top 10 caliber picks who can be pushed up higher depending on, who's drafting where. I think they're both going to end up being the top two picks, which, by the way, if you would have told me that 6 months ago, I'd be like, what? The top two picks in this class would both be quarterbacks, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. They both had really good seasons and the top two drafting teams are both in desperate need of quarterbacks. So that's just how it falls. So in terms of who the Giants would like more, your guess is as good as mine. I'm going to go with Shadur Sanders, not necessarily because I think he's the better player, but just I don't know. I feel like the Giants would take Shadur if they had to. It, here's the thing: if you take Shadur Sanders, right, even if he's a bust and it doesn't end up working out, the amount of millions of dollars you're going to generate just from him being on your team, it's going to soften the blow a little bit, right? So I'm going to go with Shadur on the Giants. And I feel like NFL scouts are a little higher on Shadur than they are of Cam Ward. Now, speaking of Cam Ward, the Raiders are going to draft him at number two overall. Listen, the Raiders, they tried to do the 1 year stopgap thing with Gardner Minshew. It has blown up in their face. It has been a disaster, absolute disaster this year. They might not even win 3 games. It is terrible right now in Las Vegas. They definitely wanted a quarterback last year, but brother, 6 QBs went off the board before they got to pick a number 13. It was ridiculous. They got screwed over. They cannot let that opportunity pass them up again this year. Cam Ward, honestly, I think both Cam Ward and Shadur are ready to go day one. I'm not saying either of them are going to look exceptional as rookies, but I actually think Cam Ward, in terms of who I think will be the best quarterback in this class early in their career, my bets would be on Cam Ward. And with a team like the Raiders, you got Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, I guess. Listen, the Raiders would have to draft a lot of help in terms of receiver and especially running back in the later rounds of this draft. But for right now, I'm going to give them Cam Ward at number two overall and they got to really dedicate themselves to fixing this offense for him in the offseason. The Panthers at number three here. This is a pretty much a no-brainer here. I'm going to go with Travis Hunter out of Colorado. The Panthers, they had about a 4 week stretch where they were looking really good, even though they lost every single game. I think it was the Buccaneers, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and somebody else. They were looking good. Bryce Young was looking good in losses, but then they just played the Cowboys, and Bryce Young played absolutely terrible. He had like four turnovers. It was rough to see, but he's still looking better. He's moving better. He's more confident. He's like so. While they're still losing terribly, his record as a starter is like 4-30 at this point. It's not going great, but quarterback's off the table. It is not a realistic possibility for the Panthers. So Travis Hunter, listen, I do think he's a better cornerback than receiver. I think the NFL feels the same way. I know he just won the Bolitnikoff for the best receiver in college football, but I do think he's a better corner than receiver. Him and J.C. Horn playing in the back end is very intriguing. And also, listen, he will play both sides of the ball. It is a foregone conclusion. The question is, if he's a primary cornerback, how much receiver will he play? I would have to assume it would be around 15 to 20 snaps a game because him playing 100 snaps, it's not happening. Him playing 60 snaps on defense and 20 on offense, I could see it. He absolutely has the cardio for it. And listen, playing as a receiver and a cornerback, you're not getting hit as much as a lineman, a running back, a linebacker, a safety. Like you know what I'm saying? You're not taking that many hits. So yeah, I think he should play cornerback and then night light or what's the word? Whatever. Some plays at receiver. If I had to assume, I'd say he get about 3 or 4 touches a game offensively. And that's more than enough. I mean, he can still be a very productive receiver in just that small role, but he helps out on the offense and locks down that secondary alongside J.C. Horn defensively. Patriots number four. This is going to be, listen, I've heard, well, there's rumors out there that the Patriots are going to go all in this offseason for T. Higgins. They should look to do that. And if they do that, then I think offensive line is the play here. Who is the best offensive lineman in this draft? It's going to be Will Campbell out of LSU. In terms of whether or not he plays tackle or guard, or then guard at first and moves to tackle, I'm not sure of that right now. The Patriots could use help everywhere. So thankfully, it doesn't matter where he plays. He's going to be a day one starter and hopefully improve their offensive line for years to come. So the Patriots' ideal offseason, in my opinion, will be drafting Will Campbell and then signing a guy like T. Higgins. That would really make Drake May's life easier moving forward. I think that's the path they should pursue. Titans at number five. Listen, they just benched Will Levis because he played one of the, if not the worst games of his career. It was brutal. So is Will Levis the answer in Tennessee? Of course not. Do you draft Jalen Milroe at number five? I don't know. I'm really in just, it's so tough. There were points where I'm like, oh man, Jalen Milroe. Yeah, this guy's a top 10 pick. He's going to be this and that. But then it's like, man, it's just, he has some games where he can't do anything. So I don't know how I feel about Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe is like the JJ McCarthy for me. He could go anywhere in this draft, and it would not shock me. He could fall out the first round entirely. He could go in the top five. I have no idea. It's going to be one of those things where some teams have Jalen Milroe as their number one QB on the board, and other teams have him not even as a first round talent. It's that wide how people feel about Jalen Milroe. For me personally, I have no idea how the Titans feel about him. So I'm going to give them a receiver. Tedoroa McMillan is a freakish athlete. I mean, truly one of the craziest builds I've ever seen for a receiver. When he goes to the combine, listen, he's not going to run like a 4.2 or a 4.3 or anything like that. I think he could run a mid 4.4, maybe a high 4.4. But man, his athletic profile, along with his route running and his hands and everything else, this guy is a special wide receiver prospect. So the Titans have to look into that, and maybe you go after Justin Fields, or I don't know what you do in order to remedy the quarterback problem. But Tedoroa McMillan is staring you in the face right there. They need help at receiver. I'm going to go with him. Jaguars at number six here. You could go offensive line. Honestly, though, listen, I know they got rid of They traded their tackle, what's it, Cam Robinson, to the Vikings, I think, right? So they definitely need help at tackle, don't get me wrong. But I think they also need help at cornerback. And Will Johnson is staring you right in the face here. You got to go Will Johnson, in my opinion. Listen, I think their offense, honestly, is a good play caller and coordinator away from being really good. Like if they got Ben Johnson, for example, that I honestly feel like their offense would be fixed. Not overnight, but you would see a drastic change already. Whereas their defense, I think they have players, man. You got Josh Allen, you got uh Trayvon Walker, the cornerback, Tyson Campbell, Devin Lloyd. Like you got players. They still got a Louis Kuhn. I think they do. You got players on this defense. Eric Armstead. Add in Will Johnson. You got your cornerback positions locked down forever. And I feel like they're ready to go. I honestly feel like if you draft Will Johnson, you're ready to go if you make the right hire at head coach. So that's how I feel about the Jaguars. The Browns at number 7. Oh man, they just had a brutal loss against the Chiefs. Their offense did nothing. They need help everywhere. Offensive line, receiver, quarterback, running back. I mean, what do you do? They're one of the worst offenses in football. They need help everywhere. And you're and you're kneecapped because 60 to 70 million dollars of your salary cap the next 2 years is going to somebody who you don't want to play for you. So the Browns literally have zero hope of making a playoff appearance the next 2 years. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but they put themselves in this own mess. So who do you draft here to try and remedy some of the problems you're having? In my opinion, you just draft the best player available offensively. I don't care what position they are. I don't care what they do. The best player offensively on the board right now is Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. Nick Chubb just tore his MCL, I think. He's done for the year. His career is not over, but his career as a star Pro Bowl running back, it's over. 3 season-ending injuries, one in college, two in the pros. It's not going to happen. Unfortunately, I love Nick Chubb. He's one of my favorite players, but you don't bounce back from that many injuries and still be a top level guy. I don't even know if he'll be with the Browns next year. I hope he is. He deserves to for them to just pay him whatever he wants. Well, not whatever he wants. That's how they got into the Deshaun Watson mess. But give him a contract, a long-term deal, not a lot of money, so he can retire with the Browns. That's what he deserves. Jerome Ford, he's good. He's not Ashton Jeanty. Jerome Ford does not prevent you from drafting Ashton Jeanty, in my opinion. How good will he be at the next level? Honestly, the last several running backs that have been drafted in the top 10, honestly, they've come in and they've made the immediate impact. Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, when was the last running back to be drafted in the top 10 that failed? Was it Trent Richardson from the Browns? That would be hilarious if that's the case. But I feel like Ashton Jeanty, is he going to turn the Browns around overnight? No. But is he going to possibly be the starting factor that gets them moving in the right direction? Maybe. Listen, you could literally do anything with the Browns pick because they need everything. So Ashton Jeanty for me is a one of many possible answers for them. The Jets at number 8. The quarterback situation. I don't think they want Aaron Rodgers to play for them next year. I gave them Jalen Milroe, I think, one of the last 2 drafts. Let me check the actual. Yeah, I gave them Jalen Milroe 2 drafts ago. Okay. I think that's still in play, obviously. I don't think they want Aaron Rodgers to be there. He did just have a really good game, though, against the Jaguars. Does the right coach come in here and make everything right? I don't know. I honestly feel like Aaron Rodgers, he's already not good enough to make a playoff appearance or win a Super Bowl or anything like that. And then next year, do you think he's going to get better at the age of what, 43 or whatever? Of course not. I just feel like you have to draft the best player available, honestly. And for me, that's Mason Graham right here out of Michigan. That's been the most common pick. I don't know what to do with the Jets. They really do have a good roster, but they're terrible for some reason. So Mason Graham on that defensive line, pair him alongside Quinnen Williams, let them wreak havoc. You got guys on the outside like Will McDonald and what else do they have as the edge rushers? Jermaine Johnson when he comes back being healthy. So that D line could be amazing next year if they were to draft a guy like Mason Graham. So I feel like that's what you got to do here for the Jets. The quarterback situation, who knows what's going to happen there. Next up, we have the Bears at number 9 for me. I'm going to give them an offensive lineman. I feel like that's obvious. Caleb Williams has already been sacked more than any other quarterback. I mean, and I thought honestly, I think their offensive line was not going to be good. I thought it was going to be average. It has not been average. It's been terrible. Some of the sacks are on Caleb, trying to extend the play, trying to do too much, but the wide majority of times, Caleb just has no chance in the pocket, right? So they need to do something here to make his life a little easier. Just look at the offensive lineman here. What do we have? Kelvin Banks out of Texas would be a very good possibility here. And that's what I'm going to do, actually. Kelvin Banks, I think he probably is the best tackle prospect in the class. 'Cause I think Will Campbell, sorry, his arms are a little bit short, right? I think he profiles a bit more as a guard, whereas Kelvin Banks, he fits that physical profile as a tackle. I think he'll be the first pure tackle off the board, and the Bears take him at number 9 because they desperately need help in that area. For the Saints, I'm going to go Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter has been shooting up draft boards recently. He's been going as high as like top 3 or top 4 that I've been seeing. I'm not that high on him. He's a former stand-up linebacker converted to an edge, so the potential is through the roof. He's really scratched the surface of what he can be. However, the Saints, for example, their defense. I mean, just think about the guys in their defense that are just getting up there in age. Tyrann Mathieu, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson, and then you get guys who are about to leave, like uh, Adebo and Chase Young 1 year deal. It's like they need young prospects. Like they only got Brian Brzee and Alante Taylor right now. Kool-Aid has been good as well, but it's like they need young pieces on this defense. They're going to be there next season. So Abdul Carter out of Penn State, he is he's most people's number one edge rusher in the class. So they've whiffed on a couple guys, by the way, over the years. Going back to Davenport, Peyton Turner, the guy from Notre Dame, Isaiah Foskey. Like they need to hit on an edge rusher, and I think Abdul Carter could be the guy for them. Cowboys at 11 here. I've basically been going Ashton Jeanty this entire time, but he is not available at this current juncture, so I'm going to go with Luther Burden out of Missouri. Their defense has been looking good recently. It did not look great against the Bengals, for example, but I mean, that's the Bengals. So what are you going to do? They shut down the Panthers, though. I feel like the offense, Dak, when he comes back, you're going to have CD. The run game, they have to draft a running back. It is a foregone conclusion that they are drafting a running back in the second or third round. And that should be fine because there's a lot of really good running backs in this class. But for their number one pick, who do they have at receiver besides CD Lamb? You got just a whole bunch of guys. Brandon Cooks, he's old. He's not going to be there next year. Cavante Turpin, he's more of a gadget guy, return man. Jalen Tolbert, okay. I mean, does Jalen Tolbert prevent you from drafting Luther Burden? Of course not. I'm gonna give the Cowboys another weapon alongside CD Lamb, and hopefully, well, I'm not a Cowboys fan, so I don't give a fuck. But hopefully for them, it makes this offense more consistent and more dynamic, I should say. The Niners at 12, their season is really just turning into a complete disaster here. You're gonna you're gonna have to pay Brock Purdy $60 million a season, so have fun with that. Um, Honestly, I don't know where they go. They could go receiver. They could go offensive line. They could go defensive line. They could go defensive back, linebacker. They have a lot of things that they could do here. Maybe not linebacker, actually. You got Greenlaw and Fred Warner, but I'm going to go offensive line for the Niners here. They need a future tackle. They need a current tackle at right tackle. And they need their future left tackle here. So I'm going to go with the guy who maybe has the best upside to be an all-pro future tackle, and that's Cameron Williams out of Texas. Ridiculous size. I mean, and a lot of offensive line really is just the measurables. I mean, it's just size, you know, frame, arm length. It's all that stuff, right? And then obviously you turn on the tape and see how good they are, how fluid they move, stuff like that. But Cam Williams, if you just look at the build, he is a future NFL tackle. That is a foregone conclusion. So I'm gonna give him to the Niners, sorry, at number 12. And maybe down the line he ends up replacing Trent Williams. Number 13, the Bengals here. I do not think T. Higgins is returning next year unless they franchise tag him for the second year in a row. Um, so that's an area of concern. Trey Hendrickson's also a free agent. I feel like you got to pay him. I mean, he is just you cannot let the best pass rusher in football statistically walk in free agency. I feel like their biggest area of concern this year has been their secondary. Mike Hilton in the slot, their corners, their safeties. They need help in the secondary. So why not just draft the best DB on the board, Malachi Starks? And I know they've invested. Listen, they've spent the draft capital. Cam Taylor Britt in the second round, Dax Hill in the first round, DJ Turner in the first round. They've been spending picks on DBs, but none of them have turned into Pro Bowl, All Pro caliber players. So give me Malachi Starks out of Georgia, put him in the slot or the nickel at first, let him move all around. He certainly is going to solve some of your problems day one in that secondary. Speaking of secondary, the Dolphins, that's where I'm looking here. The offensive line, yeah, it could be better, but I feel like honestly, as long as Tua's back there and Mike McDaniel's calling the offense, I think they're going to be fine offensively. Their area of concern is the secondary. They got rid of Xavier Howard. It feels like forever ago, but it was only like a couple months ago, I think. So they got rid of him. Jalen Ramsey's not getting any younger. He's already what? He's probably like 33, if I had to guess, which is crazy. But he was on the Jacksonville team in like 2015, 16. So I mean, he's been in the league for a while. Maybe not 33, maybe like 31, 32. But give me Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. The injury cut his season short, but he absolutely, I mean, he's a monster. You know, he definitely deserves, as long as there's no injury concerns, he definitely deserves to go in the top 15, 16 picks because he is just that good. And the Dolphins, they need help in secondary. Who else? Their safety, Javon Holland, he's a free agent as well. So yeah, they have some big decisions to make in the back end of the day, and they have some big decisions to make in the back end of their defense. The Colts at 15. I'm going to give the Colts a tight end. Usually I go Malachi Starks or Benjamin Morrison for the Colts, but neither of those guys are available. So give me a tight end. Who's the best right now? I mean, it's a toss up, really. Do you want Colston Loveland or do you want Tyler Warren? I'm going to go with Tyler Warren out of Penn State. He is a very versatile weapon. He's more of a, Colston Loveland is more of a pure receiving tight end. I think Tyler Warren, he gives you a little bit more. You can put him out the backfield. He can block in line. You can line him outside. He does a lot more for you at the tight end position. I feel like the Colts are going to value that more, his versatility at the position. And I mean, if you get Tyler Warren, right, then you get Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, A.D. Mitchell. There are no excuses if you give AR that much to work with. I think that's the biggest thing with the Colts is, do we have our guy? Okay, give him another weapon and then let's see from there. Because if he fails with all that around him, then you'll know for sure, okay, AR, we got to move on. Falcons at 16. Speaking of teams that need to move on at quarterback, Kirk Cousins has been terrible as of late. But quarterback obviously is not, a factor here at this point. It's defensive line. I mean, they just need more pass rush. I mean, they got Matthew Judon. He has not lived up to what they were hoping. Ebiketie has not broken out like some people were hoping he would. Their draft picks, Braylon Trice not playing. Rukaroro, have not heard his name all season. So it's like they have just all the things they tried to do to improve this pass rush have failed. So where do you go from here if you're a Falcons fan? You just draft whoever you think the best edge rusher is on the board. In my opinion, at this point in time, it's going to be James Pierce out of Tennessee. He's been a monster. One of the best seasons in all of college football so far. He just has, talent in abundance. And listen, defensive line is the strength of this class. Nobody is denying that. Edge rushers, linebackers, interior D linemen. It is absolutely stacked. So take your pick. There's like half a dozen guys who they could take at the spot. But I'm going to go with James Pierce out of Tennessee. Cardinals at 17. I'm going to go with interior defensive line. I thought they would go here last year. They had like 3 picks in the top 40, but they drafted the guy out of Missouri, the edge rusher. They drafted Max Melton. They drafted Paris Johnson last year. No, it was the year before last year. I forgot who else they drafted. But yeah, they had 3 picks in the top 40. They did not draft interior D line. So I'm going to give them that. Oh, they drafted Marvin Harrison as well. So I'm going to give them that right here. Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Played alongside Mason Graham for this season, but I think he has a lot of upside on his own right. Great run stuffer. And they hit on a 7th-round defensive lineman a couple years ago. I think his name Dante Stills. So they're actually starting to build something on that D line in Arizona. But listen, they're a long ways away right now. Kenneth Grant, hopefully. They got a defensive-minded coach, so give him Kenneth Grant, and maybe that's the going to start push them in the right direction to be in a really good defense. The Seahawks at 18. Listen, we just lost to the Packers on Sunday Night Football in embarrassing fashion. And it makes you wonder, do we stack up with the best teams? We lost the Lions earlier this year. Who else beat us? I mean, a lot of teams have beat us. The Niners beat us. The Rams beat us. The question is, the overarching question, is Geno the guy? And I do not think we're going to win a Super Bowl with Geno Smith. I have gone offensive line just about, let me break it down for you. I have gone offensive line. By the way, this is mock draft part five. I just realized this, but in the first mock draft, I gave us Josh Simmons. In the second mock draft, I gave us Ariante Arcery. In the third mock draft, I gave us Jonas Savanaia. In the fourth mock draft, I gave us Ariante Arcery again. I have gone O-line just about every single pick here. And that's still a concern. Don't get me wrong. It is still our biggest area of weakness. But a report came out saying the Seahawks are not going to extend Geno past next season, which is the last year of his contract. I think Jalen Morrow is the move right here. If we are not going to re-sign Geno, then we have a quarterback problem. And if we have a quarterback problem, we are the best situation for Jalen Morrow to go into. He gets to sit for a year behind Geno Smith next year, which he desperately needs to do. He needs to sit for year one. He is going to walk into an amazing amount of receiver talent. JSN, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Grant, Charbonnet in the backfield. His offensive coordinator at Seattle would be highly connected to his head coach at Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, because Ryan Grubb, the Seahawks offensive coordinator, was Kalen DeBoer's coordinator in Washington. So they have a great connection right there. I'm assuming the system is going to be pretty similar if you're going from, Kalen DeBoer to Ryan Grubb. There's a lot of things that make sense here. So honestly, it's tough to find a home for Jalen Morrow in the mock draft. Why not Seattle? Why not Seattle? So that's what I'm gonna do for the Seahawks there. The Chargers at 19. Listen, just because it's the most obvious pick does not mean it's the wrong pick. It's the most obvious pick for a reason. Tight end is a need for them. Colson Loveland's right there. John Harbaugh, Michigan. It's a no-brainer. He already drafted like 3 Michigan players last year anyway. So it's like he's shown that he does not care. He will draft whoever the fuck he thinks is the best player if they're from Michigan. So yeah, Colson Loveland at the Chargers, it is simply the most no-brainer pick in the draft right now. Rams at 20. I usually give the Rams secondary. This particular go around, I'm going to give them the offensive line. Protect Matthew Stafford. It looks like they're playing better. So if they're playing better, I feel like the goal has to be to protect Stafford, keep this offense flowing. You got Kyron Williams, Puka playing really well. Give me Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. I think his season got cut short due to injury. They got guys like Donovan Jackson playing tackle right now, but Josh Simmons is a very good prospect, and I'm pretty confident he will go in the top 20 of top 25. Buccaneers at 21. It's cornerback or D line. It's been that the entire time. It's the obvious hole for them. I'm going to go with Nick Scorton out of A&M. A very good season at Purdue 2 years ago. Transferred to A&M this year. He's been a game wrecker for them. A lot of upside as both a run stuffer and a pass rusher. So, yeah, Nick Scorton on A&M. And then if you get Nick Scorton, then you got Nick Scorton, Yaya Diaby, Vita Vea, Kalijah Cansey. That seems like a really, really good defensive line for the Buccaneers. Commanders at 22 here. It's got to be corner. I know they just traded for Marshawn Lattimore. Okay, I understand that. And there's a lot of good edge rushers available if you wanted to go that route. But Benjamin St. Juste is so fucking terrible. And they just cut Emmanuel Forbes, who they drafted 2 years ago. They cut him halfway through his second season because he was so ass. So they need help desperately at corner. Who do you go with? Shavon Revel. Listen, Shavon Revel, size and speed is ridiculous. A ridiculous build and frame for a corner. I hope he's probably not going to be healthy for the combine. He tore his ACL. But listen, man, there are going to be some teams that probably think he's like a top 15, top 12 talent. Okay, so he just has that much athletic upside. So I'm going to give him to the Commanders at 22. Broncos at 23. It's going to be Emeka Egbuka. It's pretty clear to me it's going to either be wide receiver or tight end for the Broncos. They just have to give Bo Nix more weapons here. Little Jordan Humphrey's not cutting it. So give me a Emeka Egbuka at Ohio State. I mean, Sean Payton loves Ohio State receivers, right? So that seems like the move right there. And yeah, Emeka Egbuka, Troy Franklin, Cortland Sutton. Uh, yes, please sign me up. That seems like a very good trio. Ravens at 24 here. It's going to be offensive line for the Ravens here. I mean, I know they have holes on the defense. I really don't think cornerbacks a hole. I mean, you got Marlon Humphrey. You drafted Nate Wiggins last year. You got Darius Washington. You got Brandon Stevens. I just don't think cornerbacks a need, to be honest with you. So, yeah, give me offensive line. Give me Ariante Ursary. They have some, I mean, the amount of penalties the Ravens draw from holdings and all this other shit. It's so annoying. So, yeah, give me Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota. Put him at right tackle. Texans. Also, I am not hearing anything for the Texans besides offensive line. They need to give CJ Stroud more time to throw the fucking ball. Give me Wyatt Milam out of West Virginia. He had a really good season. He's been shooting up draft boards throughout this process. It's almost a foregone conclusion now that he will be a first round pick. And I think they probably want him to play guard on the inside, replace Kenyon Green, who has been a massive disaster for them. Yeah, Wyatt Milam, number 25 for the Texans. Packers at 26. I really just feel like this has to be a cornerback. I mean, listen, they could draft. There's a lot of good linebackers and defensive linemen that they could go after. Okay, I understand that, but they drafted Devondre Wyatt. They drafted Lucas Van Ness. They drafted Quay Walker. Like all three of their last first rounds have been addressing this front seven. So let me give them a pick in the back end. That's what I've typically been doing this mock draft process. But I can't go Chavon Revel. So who am I going to go this time? I'm going to go with Jade Barron. He's had an amazing season. I don't know if he won the Thorpe Award or not. He probably should have been in the running for it, certainly. So he's had an amazing season at Texas this year. I feel pretty confident that he will go in the top 40. So Jade Barron to the Packers at 26. Steelers here at 27. It's been wide receiver pretty much the whole time for me. I'm going to keep going there because they have Pickens. I think he's been hurt recently because I haven't seen him the last couple of games. Without Pickens, this offense has been very, like, just they can't throw the ball without George Pickens. Okay. So give me Alec Ironmatter. He just has that build. He just has that big physical outside build that the Steelers like. So put him outside, put Pickens outside, and you got a couple options for the slot. You want Roman Wilson, you want Calvin Austin. You got a couple guys there, Fryermuth, Najee Harris, Tyler Warren. If that's the group, you should be very happy offensively moving forward, especially with Russ at quarterback. So the Steelers draft Alec Ironmatter, and you're good to go. The Bills at 28. Their offense is so fucking good they don't even need a receiver at this point. Just give me a front seven player. Who is it though? Is the question. You know, I'm going to go with an interior defensive lineman. Okay. The question is who? There's a lot of guys. Like I said, there's so many guys. I already had Kenneth Grant going, Mason Graham. There's still, I mean, Tyleek Williams, TJ Sanders, Walter Nolan, the guy from Oregon, Derek Harmon, Deion Walker. There's so many guys. I'm gonna go with Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, former number one player in the goddamn country. He had a very big breakout season this year at Ole Miss. He was amazing for them. So yeah, the Bills at 28. Pair him alongside Ed Oliver, and you got it, man. AJ Epinesa, Walter Nolan, Ed Oliver, Gregory Rousseau. You still got Von Miller there, I guess. So yeah, that D line will be monstrous. Vikings at 29. It's got to be corner for me. They got some straight. I mean, I'm not going to call them bones, but they got some not great corners playing for them right now. And it's unfortunate because you got Stephon Gilmore out there. He's an old guy on a 1 year deal, I think. And then obviously, unfortunately, Kyrie Jackson passed away in the offseason. They drafted him to hopefully be a part of this cornerback rotation, but that never came to fruition, unfortunately. So they need help still at cornerback. Trey Amos is sitting right there at Ole Miss, another guy who's had a really good season for them. Uh, Makes sense. Makes too much sense for me. Vikings draft Trey Amos at 29. Eagles at 30. I really don't like giving them front seven because it feels like they're just so stacked at that position, but there's so many. I mean, just look at the goddamn players here. Jalen Walker, Williams, Samar Stewart, Tyler Williams, Sanders, LT Overton, Landon Jackson, O'Malley Allen. There's so many good front seven players available right now. Give me Jalen Walker out of Georgia. I mean, it's hard to imagine him falling this far. He is just so immensely talented. He could play in so many different ways. I mean, you can send him as a linebacker straight up the middle. You can line him up on the edge. You can play him as a stand-up linebacker in coverage. You can play him as an outside linebacker, either rushing or back in coverage. I mean, he's such a versatile weapon that you can use all over. And of course, Georgia Eagles. I mean, it just makes sense, right? So yeah, Jalen Walker to the Eagles at 30. Lions at 31. They need help. They just played the Bills. They could not generate any goddamn pressure whatsoever. Okay, they without Aiden Hutchinson, they need help on this D line. Give me Mike Williams out of Georgia. Trayvon Walker type potential in terms of he has all the athletic physical tools. He just has to, bring them out and develop them a little bit. Chiefs at 32. So many, I mean, they could do anything here. They could just draft the best player available. They could use some offensive line help, really. They could go receiver, tight end. Give me Amari Hampton. It's the most exciting pick. Listen, if you're the Chiefs, right? Do you really want to be paying a running back when you don't have to? Because Pacheco is good for them. But Kareem Hunt's also been good for them. They do not need Isaiah Pacheco. Okay, he's a good player. He's a really good player for the Chiefs. But Amari Hampton could be a better player. I mean, we got to remember, guys, Isaiah Pacheco was a seventh round pick, or was he undrafted? He was one of the two who was not even a good player in college. Like he was a role player at Rutgers. And then Kenneth or Kareem Hunt was unemployed a month ago or 2 months ago. Okay, so they've had some good players, but bringing a guy with Amarion Hampton's pedigree, he could be an all pro type player behind that Chiefs offensive line. Like you don't have to pay a guy like Isaiah Pacheco. You pay a guy like Trey Smith, the offensive lineman. You rotate the receivers and the running backs. That's what the Chiefs do. So yeah, give me a Marion Hampton there at 32. And here is the overall mock draft here, part five. I just figured out here, part five mock draft. So leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new, and I will see all of you on the next one. Peace.